What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am going to bring you a profile update post Infinite Forbidden for Plunder Patrol. Now Plunder Patrol technically got an indirect support card in the form, once I skip further forward to it, in the form of the Deep Sea Fiend. Now it is a common card, it is a TCG exclusive, and what it basically does is you get to discard one card, triggering Whitebeard, and then you get to declare an attribute except water. You special summon this card from your hand to either side of the field. If you special it to your field, you are not fiend locked from the extra deck, but if you summon it to your opponent's field, you will be. Then if you special summon this card to your opponent's field, you get to special summon a level 4 or lower fiend monster with an original attribute other than the declared one, which obviously you can't declare water, and then special summon it. So you're going to be able to get more advantage off of the back of it, and you can special it from the hand or graveyard to your field, but you will be locked out of fiends, but that's absolutely fine. Locked out of the extra deck except for fiends, which is absolutely fine because our whole extra deck is going to be fiends. So you're able to get quite a lot of resource from that. Obviously the big downside is if you discard the Whitebeard, it will trigger on a new chain, so that's something you do need to be a little bit careful of when you're bringing it back from the graveyard. But the idea is you've got a nice little bit of an extension, and even if you choose not to summon it to your opponent's field and just summon it to your field, it's a level 4 water. So if you wanted to, this plus any other monster you can get to the board can make Shark and then Toad before you even lock yourself into either Plunders or Fiends, which is really, really good. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So I'm going to take you through the profile, show you what we've got, and explain why we've got it. So of course you're going to be starting off with triple Whitebeard. This is the main go-to starter for the entire deck, and the fact that we now have more ways to trigger its discard effect just makes it even better in order to float into stuff like Golden Hair alongside the rest of the Plunder crew. So triple Bluebeard, and then triple Black Eyes. Now this is the only one I'm disappointed about because it's the only one because it was the OCG exclusive that we then got added into us in Levo. It's not an ultra. Everything else is the ultra. I would really like to see this get upgraded because like the extra there is all secret bar one card, annoying, and then all of this is all ultras bar one card, which is slightly annoying. And then the only one you play two of is Redbeard. It's just the only one that's the least effective with like a discard effect. It can't really do a lot on its own, which is why you're only going to be playing two of this. Then of course you do play free Shipyard. So Shipyard is obviously your search for the entire deck, which is really kind of cool because it does have synergy with another TCG exclusive in the form of the Necro-equipped Princess, which is actually quite important for this deck. This is without Fiendsmith, this is without Runic, you can very easily add them in. The engine that I decided to go with was the Adventure engine because it will help you trigger your discard effects for your Plunder cards, as well as just being able to trigger cards like this and everything else. So the idea behind this is you can special summon this by sending one monster and then a monster equipped with a monster card. So basically if you have Blackbeard with a Plunder Patrol monster in the Spell and Trap zone, you can send that and it counts as everything you need as your fusion material to get you into the neck equip. And then if you activate a card effect, or if a card is sent from the hand to the graveyard to activate an effect, or even the field, you get to draw one card, or you can equip it to this card, and this card gains 500. But the idea is you'll just get a double draw, because the idea is when you're playing your extra decks that are discarding cards from the hand to try and pop cards or interact, you're just going to be able to draw off the back of that, and then draw off the back of this as well, which is really kind of cool. Because Shipyard is so important, and this also discard a card as cost to add a Plunder Patrol card from the deck to the hand, you are going to be utilising Terraforming. And then we are playing free of the Deep Sea Fiend. So I've already pretty much talked about what this is. This is a common from Infinite Forbidden. Definitely worth picking up if you are a Plunder Patrol fan or even a Fiend deck. I actually quite like this because what's quite nice is you're giving this to your opponent. And a lot of people forget, but when you give this card to your opponent, like straight away, if you start your turn and you go Deep Sea Fiend, you give this to your opponent, a lot of people will actually stop and forget. And they'll look at their hand and they'll be like, ah, I've got an Imperm. I can't use that. They'll be like, ah, I've got a Lightning Storm. I can't use that. I've got an Evenly. I can't use that either. Like, there's a lot of cards that straight away by giving your opponent a monster, you really do slow them down with it. Now, of course, there are ways that they can link this off. They can use it as tribute fodder. They can get rid of it in one way or another. If they're playing Forbidden Droplet, you're just giving them free material. But the idea is that because you're giving them this and you can call the attribute that you want it to, it's just a heck of a lot easier to get into your other ships because you can control, you can call Dark and get into Moak. You can control call Fire and get into Bran. And then, of course, you can control Light and get into Lelise. So you're going to instantly give yourself a monster negate, which can help protect you against Nibiru and everything else in between. And then, of course, we've gone with the Adventure package. I just feel that this is the most synergized package that takes up the least amount of space, still allows you to maintain a Plunder Patrol engine, while also still giving you protection on the board. And because you only lock yourself out of the extra deck with the with the Deep Sea Fiend, it doesn't really matter, because you can still summon down the Griffin Rider, you still set up yourself a nice Omni Negate. Space doesn't become much of an issue because you're not completely spawning the board, but just being able to add that Omni Negate to the board gives you another line of protection. And then the fact that the discard can help you trigger some of your Plunder Patrols off is really, really helpful. And then the rest of it is just 10 like hand trap lineup. You can kind of play these as you see fit. So I went with triple Ash Blossom, double Droll, double Nibiru, because you give your opponent a light monster, and then obviously that helps you get into Lice if you need to. And it's just a kind of cool card that right now, some people don't feel that people are even going to play this, or they're not even going to side it, so they can fall foul to it quite early. If this or Droll is ineffective in the environment you're taking it to, then of course you can sub them out. You've got stuff like DD Crows, you've got Bestials, which is why something like Infinite Impermanence might be considered to be taken out. Now, the reason you might consider taking this out is because sometimes you'll be drawing your hand traps during your opponent's turn, and when you're drawing cards during your opponent's turn, you want cards that you can pretty much instantly activate or provide you with as much kind of instant success as possible. So that's when you could probably consider something like DD Crows could be more useful for you, Bestials could be more useful for you. You could consider Talents, but it would have the same kind of effect as Infinite Impermanence, that if they activate a card effect on you, then you'll be able to then you're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage, because if they don't activate Imperm on you, if they do activate Imperm on you, you're not going to be able to use it, but if they don't, and they use any other monster effect, then you're going to be able to get some form of advantage from it. That being said, again, when you take out Imperm, that's when you might want to consider stuff like I've already mentioned, DD Crow, Ghost Mourners, all of that could be very helpful in the environment. The reason I've kept Imperm in here is it's a good option to go second and go first. And like I said, straight away, if you give your opponent the Deep Sea Fiend, they can't use Imperm. So that completely takes out one of their hand traps. And because you're doing it at such an early point in the combo, there's no point prior to that they could Imperm you. So it then means that they now need to rely on stuff like Mourner, and in order to get Mourner's usefulness out of it, the only time they could really Mourner you is by the time you've already got a Griffin Rider on the board. And if they go Mourner on the Griffin Rider, you either go, okay, they're probably sitting on the Nibiru, or you just go, yeah, okay, cool, Griffin Rider, and you negate it anyway. Cool with the Grave because, you know, hand traps, protect it, do what you need to do. Moving on to the extra deck. Now, you can put more money into this if you want to. You'd really only have about 3 or 4 spaces that are a little bit flex spots. I deliberately chose not to put IP and not to put SP in here to kind of keep it within a tighter budget. But if you wanted to add that in, you can do very easily. So, of course, we've got triple Blackbeard. So, Blackbeard does what it does. This is one that you can draw, and then you basically put a goblin into one of your ships, and then that's how you can kind of work your way into something like a Moak, which Moak is the front row aggressor, Brawn is the back row aggressor, Lice is your negator, and then your Plunder Patrol Jord is your other way of being able to give your opponent a monster which has an attribute, and then that's how you're able to kind of get into your other ones. That was the biggest issue that this deck had, and when we got this in Photon Hypernova, it was a great introduction to the deck, or addition to the deck, because then it just allowed you to kind of utilize, give your opponent a token, which again did the exact same job as the Deep Sea Fiend, but it now means you don't need to rely on this as much when you're doing so. So for those of you unfamiliar with this one, just because it's the newest one, is if your opponent special summons a monster or monster except during a damage step, you can add a Plunder Patrol card from the deck to the hand. Then if this card is equipped with a Plunder Patrol card, you get to special summon a Plunder Patrol monster from the deck. You can target a Plunder Patrol card in your graveyard, add it to your hand, and if you do place this card into your Pendulum Zone, you can only use each effect once per turn. And obviously the idea is that you make this nice and early, because then you also have the Pendulum effect, which is you can declare one attribute, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, you special summon a Plunder Patrol token, Fiend level 4, attack 0, defense 0, with that declared attribute to both players' field in defense. So you're giving your opponent a monster, which is what you're going to need, because you're going to declare it as an attribute. More times than not, you would have gone through Lice to get into the light, but now you can pretty much go into whatever you want, because you can also give them a Deep Sea Fiend and kind of crack on, basically. Then for the other cards, again, keeping it down, I do like the Moon of the Closed World. Like, if this was a higher rarity and it was more expensive and it was harder to get, then obviously I wouldn't be using it. But I still like the idea of being able to use this to go into an Underworld Goddess. I think a lot of people actually undervalue the fact that this still is actually a thing. The fact that you can use Moon of the Closed World plus 2 of your opponent's monsters and then 1 of yours to get into an Underworld Goddess is insane. Like, it's a target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, and then because you're going into Underworld Goddess, you get to use an additional monster as well. It's just mental, absolutely mental. And then the other brand new card we play is the Neko Quick Princess. Already pretty much talked about this one. So this one specifically requires a monster with one monster equipped with a monster card and a Fiend monster card. Now obviously you're going to have that already because your monster is the monster equipped with a monster card, and that monster is a Fiend. So quite like with the Fiendsmith combo, where you literally just use the Fiendsmith plus the Requiem that's equipped to it. You then use both of those in order to make this, so very easily done. And then the last synchro I play, again, is Fiend, is Groza. I just really quite like this, because again, this one can help you trigger off the Princess if you wanted to, but during your opponent's main phase, you get a quick effect to target an effect monster on the field, you discard a monster as effect, and if you do, negate that monster's effect until the end of this turn. So it's a nice little target negate. On top of that as well, it's a Fiend, it's a level 8, so it can be synchroed quite easily, and it doesn't matter that you Fiend lock yourself either with the Deep Sea Fiend or with your Plunder Patrols or anything else like that. Obviously, your Plunder Patrols will lock you into Plunders, which is why it makes it a little bit harder to use these, but it's also why there's only 4 flex spots in this extra deck. I don't think there's anything along the Plunder Patrol lineup that you'd probably want to cut down. And the only benefit of adding an IP into this is you could IP early doors and then IP into an Underworld Goddess during your opponent's turn. But honestly, I quite like using the Moon as a go second option, because if your opponent puts... So as a note, there's only one zone on the entire board that you can put a monster that won't be able to be targeted by the closed world, and that's the far left zone, the zone over here, because Moon on the closed world... no, it's not even that, sorry, it's this one here. Because Moon, if it goes into this zone here, uses this, and then it can put into this. So if you're facing someone, this is your zone on the far right that can't be Moon Goddessed, and if you are building your their zone is the far left. God, it's really weird. But basically the idea is your far right, if you are the player, your far right zone is the zone that will always be protected from the Moon Goddess. So, you know, that's where you kind of want to add it. But at the end of the day, if you're going to spam your board with like more than one monster, you're always going to be in Moon territory. You just want to make sure you don't give them 2 monsters, because as soon as you give them 2 monsters, which is obviously far left in here or center in here, then straight away they're going to get into an Underworld Goddess without much help, without much difficulty. So that's pretty much it for the entire profile. A very minor update, but it's just kind of cool, because I think the last one that I did on this was back in September last year, which is crazy. Of course, like I said, you could take out the adventure package, you could play Fiendsmith if you wanted to, but when you're looking at what, like 10p for a playset of these at the right, like a friend might even just give you them for free. So when you're looking at 10p for a playset of that card in comparison to I don't even know, like 210, 250, 300 pound for a playset of for like the Fiendsmith engine, it's just, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Plus it then means that your 4 flex spots in your extra deck then become like null and void, because you just won't have the space to do that. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you do have any questions, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.